Chapter 18. Something was buzzing, and that was never good. It was dark, I was awake, and I had no idea where I was. Then I remembered, of course, I was on a space station run by a goat turtle who hated me, and there was a lizard guy sleeping 10 feet away from me. It was the middle of the night, which explained the darkness, and my data bracelet was trying to deliver an emergency message. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to get them to focus. I then looked at the bracelet. The message was from Tamret, and I was suddenly wide awake.
"Open your door, you moron."
I scrambled out of bed and made it to the front door with only tripping maybe twice. I threw open the door, and there she was, standing in the light of the hallway. She wore a long nightgown and a bathrobe, and her hair was a little messy, but she looked like I remembered her, more than she had at any time since returning to the station.
"Can I come in?"
she asked. Her voice was low but insistent. Her eyes zeroed in on me. It was like the old Tamret had returned. "Steve's sleeping," I said, not quite sure what else to say. My heart was hammering like crazy. Tamret had been ignoring me for 2 days, and now she suddenly wanted to talk to me.
"He can sleep through anything,"
she said, and then pushed past me. It was true that Ishi were notoriously deep sleepers. We had discovered that last year when we tried to wake him up for an emergency, without success. And I'd learned that all over again now, having him as a roommate. Tamret made her way into the room, turned on my bedside light, and sat on my bed with her hands in her lap. I sat next to her, keeping a few inches between us. There was an excruciating 60 seconds of silence. Finally, I broke it by being a jerk. Yay me. "Are you sure the caste police won't arrest you for being here?"
"That's not funny,"
Tamret said. Her ears were back and her whiskers twitching, which was never a good sign. "I know it's not funny, but neither is your refusing to talk to me." She turned to me, her expression unreadable. I'd grown so used to being able to interpret every shift of her eyes or twitch of her whiskers that I felt like I didn't know her at all now.
"When we get to Rarl,"
she said in a flat voice,
"we'll have to follow local laws, so things might get tricky. The caste regulations say I have to follow Vilonic's orders, but I don't want to go with him."
That stopped me cold. "You don't?" She shook her head. Her eyes were lowered, like she didn't want to make eye contact with me. "What do you want, then?" She was still looking down.
"Will you bring me back to Earth with you?"
I don't know that she could have said anything that would have made me happier. I wanted to hug her, I wanted to hold her hand and laugh, and for everything to be like it used to be, but she still sat there, quiet. "What happened to you?" I asked. "Why are you engaged to that guy?" She shook her head.
"I don't want to talk about it, okay? And I can't stay long. He doesn't snoop around all that often, but he's allowed to enter my room whenever he wants, and he has checked on me in the middle of the night a couple of times, that I know of. Just promise me you won't leave me behind, Zeke."
"If we're on rural soil, I don't know if I can."
"You can do anything,"
she said, her voice quiet.
"You promised me you were going to get me off Rarl, and you did."
"Yeah, it looks like I was too late."
"You weren't,"
she said.
"Not if I don't have to go back. I'd rather spend my entire life in Confederation prison."
"Tamret, why don't you just walk away from him? People break engagements all the time."
"Maybe in your culture," she said. "I don't have that choice. I made vows. And I'm bound up with his caste and its rules. Forever. There's no way out unless the promise I made conflicts with a preceding obligation. I've tried to figure out some way that it might, but there's nothing. I'm stuck, Zeke."
"And you can't just break your vow?" I asked, hopefully. "I mean, it's not nice to go back on your word, but sometimes you have to."
"I can't,"
she said, her voice straining to convey the gravity of what she felt.
It was a holy vow, and I can't break it.
I liked that about her. She would break laws if she didn't agree with them, but she regarded these promises as ironclad. Unfortunately, it did leave us with a bit of a problem. So, how are you going to...
I don't know yet,
she said.
But I'll figure something out. Or you will. Just don't leave me behind. Please.
I swallowed. I won't. Of course I won't. You know that.
Thank you.
She turned away and wiped her eyes with the back of her hand.
I need to go.
She stood up and moved to the door. I miss you, Tamrat, I said quietly, not bothering to look up and watch her leave.
I'm right here,
she said. No, you're not. She nodded.
You're right.
She opened the door.
But when it counts, I will be.
When she stepped into the hall, Vilonik was standing there. He was an angry-looking Rarl, which is not something that you ever want to see. I was up and walking towards them, trying to look as tough as I possibly could, but given that I was wearing an Adventure Time t-shirt and a pair of boxers, I think I enjoyed only limited success.
Get back to your room,
Vilonik said to her, his voice quiet and restrained, and, I thought, injured. Tamrat nodded, and she hurried off, her shoulders hunched. Vilonik turned to me, and I braced myself for the worst. I'd seen his kind fight, and a mediocre Rarl could trounce a pretty tough human, which I wasn't. Things were about to get ugly, and there was nothing I could do about it. The main thing I knew was to deflect Vilonik's anger. I would let him put me in the hospital, if it would protect Tamrat. He stepped into my room, slouched in defeat.
I don't know what to do about her,
he said to me, his voice heavy with wretchedness.
She is so disobedient, and more importantly, she's not happy.
I could not help but notice he wasn't punching me in the face. But you're not hitting me? I observed, too relieved to keep my mouth shut. That's good news.
Why would I hit you?
He asked. Well, your fiancée was in my room in the middle of the night.
Did you abduct her or force her to come here against her will?
He asked. Of course not, I said.
Then I have no cause to be angry with you, do I?
Okay, this wasn't a jealous boyfriend that I was dealing with. I wasn't sure what it was, but I was enjoying the absence of face punching.
She's your friend, Zeke, and I understand that's why she came here, but I think even you can see that her behavior is unacceptable. You know her better than anyone here. Any advice you can give me would be really appreciated.
Advice about what?
How to get her to obey the rules,
he said, throwing up his hands in exasperation. Oh, that's easy, I said. Take the rulebook and get rid of everything she's not allowed to do, and then get rid of all the things she has to do. I think you'll be okay then.
I realize you're making a joke, but it's not a funny one. My honor requires that she observe the traditions of betrothal, but if she breaks them the moment I turn my head, how can I trust her?
Did you even have a single conversation with her before you guys got engaged or whatever? I asked. Do you know her at all?
I hope to come to know her,
Vilonik said.
She is very quiet and demure, which is something I like in a girl.
Are we still talking about Tamrat, or did the conversation change?
She was not quiet and reserved with you?
Vilonik asked. I was going to tell him that no, she was loud and unhinged, she was wild and fearless and more than a little dangerous to be around, but I didn't think that would do me, or Tamrat, or even Vilonik any good. I guess it's a matter of perspective. I shook my head. How did you guys even become, like, a thing? I asked, waving my hands around, not wanting to say the words. Vilonik looked at me, his eyes huge and round with surprise.
Did you just insult the honor of the second-tier deity of domestic arrangements and livestock slaughtering?
I have no idea, I said. Did I?
You did.
I'm gonna be as honest with you as I can be, and tell you I really didn't mean to do that. I'm just not sure why you would marry someone that you don't know. I mean, She doesn't have a powerful family or own a lot of property and stuff. So why did you bring her into your caste? I don't know much about your culture, but it sounds to me like people would see it as marrying down.
In my family,
He said.
Tamret's condition is considered to be good luck.
Her condition? He made a gesture towards his face and arms.
You know, her appearance.
He meant her white fur. The other Rarls I'd met had all been variations of brownish tan. Tamret had told me last year that a small percentage of Rarls were born with white fur, and that it was often considered unattractive on her world. It now seemed that there were other options, though. Okay, I said. You basically saved her from prison so you could marry her in the hopes of someday having children with white fur.
Or grandchildren. It doesn't matter. It is that I have an increased chance of having such progeny. Please understand, Zeke, I'm a fifth son. Do you know what that means?
That you got beaten up a lot as a kid?
Well, yeah, but it also means that I have to be creative if I were to find some way to marry significantly. Women of stature or wealth would not want me because unless my older brother should meet with accidents, I won't inherit property.
I get it, I said. I understand entirely. You can hope your brothers all die, but you can't depend on it. In the meantime, you might as well marry a girl you don't know because she might pass along some traits in your family that they consider good luck even if everyone else thinks they're gross.
Exactly,
Valonic cried out.
I knew you would understand.
I understood that Valonic was a complete idiot, but I didn't think it best to say that. I needed to get him to trust me, and more importantly, to let Tamret act like herself around me. Here's the thing, I told him, like we were buddies now. I really don't want to be disrespectful, but it would help your chances of getting off the station alive if you could give Tamret a little bit more freedom.
It is clear to me that you have different ways,
Valonic said.
And it is not for me to judge those ways. I can only tell you that what you think of as freedom will not be acceptable in the social circle she must soon inhabit. She must find a new way to think of herself so she can be happy and successful. You are the only one she trusts. Will you help me in my cause?
I don't know if I'm really the person to do that,
I can think of none better,
Valonic said. I don't want you to be unhappy, Valonic, I began, but that was as far as I got.
And you don't want Tamret to be unhappy. Therefore, you are the best person to help us be happy together. Thank you, Zeke. You have cheered me considerably. Good night.
I followed him out of the room and watched as he actually strutted down the hall, as though all of his problems had been solved, and he had not a single care in the universe. I turned back to my room. The door was open, and Steve was leaning heavily against the door jamb, rubbing at one of his eyes with his palm. His sleeping tunic was wrinkled.
Are you aware,
He asked me.
that this sort of thing doesn't really happen to anyone but you?